So if you clicked on this video, it's probably because you are about to shoot your first wedding, which is very exciting. Also, a little intimidating. You may be feeling nervous, a little overwhelmed. What in the world can you expect? So what I'm gonna do in this video is I'm gonna give you something that I wish I had at the very beginning of my career. I would have given anything for someone to have sat down and told me these 5 tips that are gonna empower you for your first wedding day. They're practical, there's some emotional support built into them, and it's gonna allow you to thrive in a way that I never could because I didn't have this when I first started. Before we get into this, I just want you to know the absolute best way to get experience as a wedding photographer is to experience shooting a wedding. And I also know that in this industry, one of the hardest things to come by is getting experience shooting a wedding. And so that is why I created KJ All Access. It's literally a behind the scenes membership that I allow a videographer to follow me around through an entire wedding day. So you'd be able to see me photograph everything from showing up and scouting locations and going to the bridal suite to the reception at the end of the night and the exit. Everything in between, the ceremony, the portraits, the family portraits, the bridal party portraits, everything. You get to see how I would do it. And it's not just one wedding, it's over 300 episodes to pick and choose from based on whatever you need to learn. We literally created this membership with someone like you in mind. If you are fully serious about becoming a wedding photographer and doing your absolute best at your first wedding, I highly encourage you to dive into All Access. It is the best preparation you could ever do. You owe it to yourself and you owe it to your future clients. And the best part is it's only $29. You could literally sign up for 1 month and watch some great videos and get prepared for your next shoot and then be done. Most people don't do that though. There's a link in the description below for All Access, and I hope you can join me and sign up. Welcome to the community. Now let's dive into the rest of the video. So the first tip is you have to have the right gear. Notice I didn't say you have to have the best gear. You're not gonna have the best gear for your first wedding, and that's okay. But there are some pieces of gear that are non-negotiables in order for a wedding photographer to fully avoid a catastrophe. Literally the worst thing that could happen to a photographer, the absolute worst thing, is for you to lose wedding images. This has never happened to me, thank the good Lord, but we're gonna put some things in place to make sure it doesn't happen to you. So first things first, you need to have a backup camera, right? If something happens to your main shooting camera and you don't have a backup, you're gonna be shooting with an iPhone, and no one wants that. You're gonna also need backup batteries. Ideally, if you only have 2, then when you don't have one on, in your camera using it, then you would have it on the wall charging somewhere. So really it'd be best to have 3, in my opinion. Then you need to have extra cards. A lot of people think like, oh, I'm not gonna shoot that much. You don't really know. You've never shot a wedding before? You might be a little bit trigger happy like I am, and so you might need more card space. If you run out of card space on a wedding day, and you don't have another card, I'm not really sure what you're gonna do. You're gonna have to delete some bad one. That's not even a possibility. Just have an extra memory card. So when you're thinking about buying a memory card, I would say a 64 gigabyte card would be fine. 128 gigabyte card would be best. I'm gonna actually link some of these below that are affordable and reliable. They're the cards that I use. I think there's ways to be prepared for a wedding day and make good decisions with gear purchases, but you don't have to break the bank, but you also don't wanna buy some really like 16 gigabyte cards. That's just not gonna serve you well when you're shooting a wedding. All right, tip number 2 is to get a hold of a timeline and visualize the day. Now, if you are photographing your first wedding, chances are you're probably photographing a low-key wedding day. Maybe not. Maybe you're diving into this industry and doing something big time. If that's the case, you may have a planner and they may have a timeline for you, which would be amazing. But if you're shooting a more low-budget, chill, backyard style wedding, normally they don't have a timeline in place. And so there's a few reasons why this is really important for you to pay attention. If you come to the bride and say, do you have a timeline already in place? If not, I'd love to create one for you. I have a free download. You can copy my timeline for the wedding day. I'll make sure that's linked below. You look like you have your stuff together, right? If someone already has a timeline, you look like you have your stuff together, just being proactive and asking for one. What I don't want to happen is that I don't want you to show up to a wedding day and act like a strict photojournalist. I think some people approach wedding days like this, and I think it's a huge loss in their marketing potential because they're just a fly on the wall and they don't help execute the day. They don't help make sure everything gets captured. Wedding days need photographers to gently command authority during certain parts of the wedding day. So once you get a hold of that timeline, what I want you to do is to work through that timeline and try to stop and visualize what your goals are for each part of the day. What do you want to shoot during the pre-ceremony time of the day? When you're in the bridal suite, what are your goals in the bridal suite? If you are listening to this and you're thinking, Oh, how am I supposed to know? I've never done this. Maybe you've never even been in a bridal suite. Maybe you've never really studied wedding photography and you were just asked to do this and you're like, okay, I guess I will. And you've never seen a blog post of like a professional photographer and what the industry standard is. Again, this is where KJ All Access comes into play, because you can watch me do it in a real bridal suite, in a real setting with a real bride with real images. Then you can see the full blog post. You can even see me scroll through the full gallery of images that I delivered to my couple. It's just a game-changing resource, especially for someone like you who is just getting into this. So when you look at the timeline, I just want you to have a general idea and you've just tried to visualize what this is going to feel like. And it's not going to feel like that. It's going to feel a little bit different. But someone who has gone through a timeline and has tried to pre-visualize what they want to happen is going to be way less thrown off than someone who's just showing up and it's like, well, I don't know what's happening. What in the world is going on? Wedding days are not the time to wing it. And that's what a lot of photographers do for their first wedding. They don't think it's that serious. It's not that big of a deal. And then the wedding day happens to them, not for them. And so they walk away and they're like, I hope I got something, instead of walking away feeling confident that they really captured the day well for their clients. So the moral of the story is, the more prepared you are ahead of time, the more likely you are to walk away from this wedding day with a collection of images that you are actually proud of, instead of feeling like you're a hot mess. Go in with at least attempting to understand how the day is going to unfold. And if you're able to do this, it's going to help you a lot with point number 3. So point number 3 is to always be thinking 3 steps ahead. The worst thing you can do as a wedding photographer is to be hyper fixated on what's happening right in front of you and not be prepared for what's about to hit really fast in like 3 minutes. You gotta keep your mind ahead of where reality is. The goal as a wedding photographer is to constantly be proactive and not reactive, because if you are reactive, you are actually a part of the problem. You are not helping the day go smoothly. You are just as much blindsided and overwhelmed and chaotic internally as maybe the bride and groom feel. So let me give you an example of this. Let's talk about the first look. So a reactive photographer would just be like walking down those stairs with the bride, maybe holding the dress, and you have your camera in hand ready to photograph the first look, but you haven't thought once about where you're taking them. You have no idea where the light is good, where they can be protected from harsh light. A proactive photographer arrives at the venue, and before they even go into the bridal suite, they have scanned and scouted the area to see exactly where they could do a first look, maybe in the shade, maybe up against a plain wall that you'll be protected from harsh light. They've done a little bit of research. So when they're walking down the steps, going to a first look, they've already told their second shooter, or maybe the best man, hey, when it's first look time, just pull them right under this tree over here, right? There's so much that happens when a photographer thinks 3 steps ahead that helps everyone in the process. That brings me to tip number 4. And tip number 4 is that you need to be very comfortable with your gear. Like, I think when you're photographing a wedding, you should be able to change your settings when you go from outside in the first look back inside, maybe for the ceremony. You need to just know very quickly that I'm going to increase my ISO. I'm going to lower my shutter to a safe zone. Understand what the safe zone is. Make sure your aperture stays at a healthy, appropriate place. Those things need to be like second nature. You can't be figuring out how to change those things on a wedding day. And the only way to get better at this is to practice. It's the only way. So if you have your own gear, then you can practice anytime, and that's great. Get to practicing. But if you are renting, you're going to need to rent a few days prior so that you have time to understand what you're working with, understand the buttons, practice at home. You don't want to pick up the camera that you're going to be shooting with and renting for the next day. You need time to get used to this thing. All right, so the other thing you need to be proficient in or understand at least the basics. This is where most people get stuck. You've got to understand how to work your flash. Right? When you get in that reception and there's no natural light left and the lights are down low, or you're walking to a ceremony and it is like there's candles in the front, nothing else, and you're like, oh my gosh, you've got to be able to understand how to at least take a picture and it show humans, to be able to see facial features. Like, if you don't know how to use your flash, the wedding day is not the day and not the time to learn how to do it. I want you to be able to put your flash on your shoe mount on your camera. You do not need off-camera flash for your first wedding. You can get by with just your on-camera flash. I want you to be able to turn it on. I want to make sure you can make sure that it's actually firing. And then I want to make sure that you know how to adjust the power. There's some things you could test out at home with your kids, with your dog, with an office chair. I don't care what you do. Just practice using this flash before you get to your first wedding day. The goal shooting in the dark at your first wedding should be to get an in-focus, well-exposed photo. We don't need it to be artistic. We don't need to have crazy off-camera lighting with glow on the back of the heads. We don't need to be artistic at all. We just need it to be clear and in focus and properly exposed. And we need to be able to do that multiple times. And then tip number 5 is to give yourself some grace, because when you're photographing your first wedding, there is no one on this planet that's going to walk into their first wedding and feel like they just won the day, right? No one's going to feel that way. It's going to feel like a lot. You're going to feel like you missed some things. You're going to walk away feeling like I could have done that better. Sure, I still feel that, and I've done this for 16 years. But if you're photographing your first wedding, your mindset going into this cannot be, I don't know what I'm doing. If that's what you keep telling yourself, that is what everyone around you is going to feel. And that's not what we want everyone around you to feel. If you're hoping that this becomes a career for you, if you're wanting to book more weddings after this and charge more and grow this amazing business, then your first wedding is your first chance to show people that you are fun to work with, that you're a joy to work with, and that you have confidence. Borrow some confidence from other people around you. I don't know what you need to do, but we got to at least exude that we are very confident in what we're doing. And a lot of photographers, I think it's easy to watch them on a wedding day, especially their first wedding, and realize they don't feel in control. I'm not saying that you have to boss everybody around. That's not what I'm saying. But there's a way for a photographer, even if you're still learning, to show up knowing that you are giving it your best shot. So have some grace for yourself. Show up confidently, even though you know you don't know everything. This video is going to help you a lot. All Access will help you tremendously. And enjoy the day. Have fun. I capture way more creative images and fun images when I'm having fun myself. At the end of the day, you have to remember that it might be your first wedding, but it's their only wedding. You don't want to be super negative and anxious and kind of snippy and snappy with people because you are so overwhelmed. You're probably, no matter what, this sounds negative, but you're probably going to walk away with mediocre photos. And that is normal. Actually, it's way better than normal. Most people, their first wedding, their photos are not great at all. But even if you walk away with average photos, mediocre photos, you want to walk away having captured those with a good attitude rather than capturing them with a negative attitude. It's only going to serve you well in the future to have a pleasant experience with people. So make sure you give yourself grace, exude confidence, and try to have a positive attitude even in the midst of your overwhelm. So just remember, the best thing you can do for yourself and your client is to sign up for KJ All Access and watch me shoot a wedding behind the scenes. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.